I am not going to starve my loved one by not feeding them. I want to give you a couple examples of food and fluid issues at end of life that I witnessed as a hospice nurse, conversations that I had with families, just so you understand an actual experience and why we give the direction to start reducing the amount of food that's given, and ultimately that people don't need food and fluid at end of life. When you're on call on the weekend, a lot of times you don't really know what you're going to walk into. When I got to the house, I saw that the person was on a feeding tube. From what I understood, they lay the person down and suddenly there was foam at the mouth, choking and very uncomfortable. So after doing an assessment and hearing in the lungs, there was a lot of fluid in the lungs, was that because of the feeding tube that the person may not have been able to process the food anymore. And when they lay their loved one down, the feeding, the liquid came up and went straight into their lungs. Their lungs were filled with fluid when I got there. It was awful. When I started to talk about the feeding, the first thing the family said is, I am not going to starve my loved one by not feeding them. I understand people are told from the time that they give birth to a child or that a baby comes into the world immediately that you have to feed. That's mother's love, is giving food. That is how most cultures work. Everything works around food. But when a person is coming to end of life, those needs change. The body isn't able to process it anymore. And so it can cause discomfort. And in having that discussion with the family, they shut down the conversation because of not understanding that they were actually unintentionally causing harm. If your loved one is unresponsive and they look like they are coming close to dying, their body is not going to process that food anymore. It's just not going to process it. All the energy is going to keeping the other organs going, and it will cause discomfort to them, or they'll aspirate on it and it will actually cause things to happen faster. Families understandably are always concerned about starving their loved one. They will not die because they are not eating. They will not eat because they are dying. For loved ones that are on hospice, that people, and this is not just about feeding tubes, this is about anyone that thinks that they need to give their loved one nutrition to be able to keep going, it can cause discomfort to them at some point. When someone comes onto hospice, we don't just stop them from eating. That's not how this works. If someone is eating, my mom was on hospice for 1.5 years and she ate up until a week before she died. We kept her eating as long as she could, as long as it was comfortable. We want people to be comfortable at end of life. And part of that is no longer having a need to take in nutrition via fluids or solid foods. I hope that helps.